Hello everyone and welcome to Tony's Healthy Kitchen. I am your host, Tony La Ferrara. Each episode of our 10-part video series will focus on a different health topic that is important to our well-being as we get older. With the help of our guests, we will explore and learn more about each topic from a medical perspective, and we will also focus on healthy food options, fitness tips, and delicious, easy-to-prepare recipes that will help us improve and maintain a healthy lifestyle as we get older. Today we're going to talk about one of my favorite subjects, carbohydrates. And to help us understand and learn more about this very important topic is registered dietitian Rowena Leung, and she's also a certified diabetes educator. Rowena, welcome to Tony's Healthy Kitchen.
Thank you for having me. Hello, everybody.
Good to see you back.
Yes, glad to be back.
So today we're going to talk about carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are the human's body main source of energy, and yet they're being blamed for a lot of bad things. You know, the rise of obesity, cardiovascular disease, and many other ones. So whether we're dieting or just eating for comfort, many of us have a love affair with carbohydrates. We love it. But Rowena, not all carbs are created equal, are they?
That's correct. So you are correct in the sense that, unfortunately, in the present day society, carbohydrates are often it gets a bad reputation.
Yes.
But like you also said, carbohydrates are our body's most important fuel source. And let me remind everybody that our brain needs 130 grams of carbohydrate per day. That is the brain's preferred fuel source. And 130 grams just allows our brain to do basic functions, never mind exercise, never mind all the extra stuff that somebody's lifestyle may include, right? But yes, not all carbohydrates are created equal. There's something called complex carbohydrates. There's something called simple carbohydrates. And I think it's fair to say that in general, as a registered dietitian and certified diabetes educator, I would encourage everybody to lessen your simple carbohydrate intake. What does that mean? It basically is a fancy word for processed foods.
Right.
Anything that is a refined carbohydrate, which is basically you take a whole grain. It's got the endosperm, the wheat germ, and the wheat bran. You strip away pretty much the wheat bran and the wheat germ, and all that's left is the endosperm. So pretty much the refined carbohydrate, it really is left with not a lot of nutrition. Because the wheat germ and the wheat bran, this is where a lot of the vitamins, a lot of the minerals, a lot of the fiber, this is where it exists, right? So when we say complex carbohydrates, these are the fiber-rich whole grain options that everybody is encouraged to have. So for example, quinoa, sorghum, buckwheat, soba, brown rice, freekeh, right? All these good options, because again, when we think about carbohydrate, don't just think of it as starch, don't just think of it as sugar, but you've also got to add in the fiber. So carbohydrate is actually made up of three components. It's fiber, sugar, and starch. Fiber is the one component that is not absorbed or digested by our body, and we want more of it. So for the average male, if you are 50 years and under, what do you think the goal would be to get? How many grams of fiber a day do you think, Tony?
I would say about 25.
That would be for the average woman under the age of 50.
Right.
But if you were a male, our goal would be 38 grams of fiber.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, if you are a male over the age of 51, your goal would then be 25. Okay. So you're not wrong. You're not wrong. So, but the average woman, if you are over the age of 51, then it drops down to 21. But regardless, whether it's 21 grams, 25 grams, 25 grams, 38 grams, it is a lot of fiber. And that is one thing we know for sure. Canadians or North Americans in general, we just don't get enough fiber.
Don't get enough of that, yeah. But you said something before about, the importance of carbs in our diet.
Yeah.
Without carbs, the body cannot produce enough energy to function properly.
Yes. Yes.
But when we think of carbs, like you said, we think of sugars and we think of grains, but we don't think of all of the other benefits that we can get from carbs, right?
Exactly. So in terms of also what somebody may not automatically think about is when you take a whole grain, when you eat quinoa or brown rice or freekeh, you are also getting prebiotics. So I'm sure you've heard of probiotics, which helps with our gut health. So again, think of dairy products like kefir or fermented foods, right? Like kimchi or miso. But again, in order for the probiotics to function, these probiotics, the good bacteria, actually need their food source. And their food source is prebiotics. And prebiotics are found in whole grains. Yes, you can find it in onion and garlic and whatnot and bananas, but you do need whole grains. So if somebody chooses to cut out carbohydrates entirely, you're missing out on prebiotics, which is pretty important in gut health, which is also a hot topic now, given how common, people say, I feel bloated from eating anything, right?
Yeah, no, and you mentioned simple carbs and complex carbs.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the some of the foods where we find, the simple carbohydrates that we need to avoid?
Right. So in terms of the simple carbohydrates or the refined carbohydrates, this would often refer to any of the white bread products.
Mm-hmm.
So think of your delicious bakery goods, baked goods, your croissants, your muffins, your cookies, your white bread, your baguettes. So again,
please don't say pasta.
and to a certain extent, yes, pasta, because but when we talk about all these foods, it's not saying cut them out entirely, it's lessen the portion. But also when we talk about pasta, there are ways to cut down. For example, when you have pasta, did you know that 1 cup cooked? So think about that basic measuring cup, 1 cup cooked. That's not a lot of pasta, but that's like eating 2 pieces of bread. Because when I counsel individuals, when I say when you eat bread, a standard slice of bread, people are like, oh, no brainer. I only have 2 slices. Maybe the person only has 1. But when they have pasta, it's not just 1 cup cooked. It's a whole plateful, and that could be 2, 3 cups cooked, right? So this is where, the mindset has to start thinking and be like, well, if right now my plate of pasta is the equivalent of 3 cups, how can I still feel full but cut down, right? So have you tried mixing spaghetti squash into your pasta? Because again, I find spaghetti squash, it's pretty flavor neutral. It can be mixed in quite well. Yes, the texture's not quite like pasta, but again, think of it as incorporating more vegetables, right? There's also zucchini noodles, are known as zoodles. That's fun too. You can mix it into your pasta as well. Or some people are like, well, what about the high protein pastas on the market? The ones made from black bean and the chickpeas and the lentils. These are actually not a bad alternative. They actually do taste like pasta, a little heartier. So for somebody who's a pasta lover, you will know the difference, but at least know that when you mix the two together, you're consuming less carbohydrates because you're getting more protein and more fiber. Right? But the ultimate goal, if somebody says, I only eat the equivalent of 2 slices of bread at 1 meal, then you're aiming for 1 cup cooked.
Right. But, going back, and I don't want to make this about pasta because it's not the only, culprit in all of this.
Yeah.
But it also depends on what you put on it, right?
Yes.
I mean, you can have a cup of pasta, like you said, but you put this very heavy, sauce with a lot of fats in it and all of that. And that's for sure, it's not going to help, right?
Yes.
But the one thing about carbs, though, is that we need them for our body to function properly. What happens if, we go on a diet where we say, that's it, no more carbs? Is our body going to react to that?
So our bodies will definitely react to it. As we already established, carbohydrates provide glucose, and glucose is the preferred brain source of fuel. But once we cut our bodies off of carbohydrates, our next preferred source of fuel is actually fats. And once our body gets into the process of burning fats, that's something called ketosis. And
Right.
you will definitely know when you're in ketosis because your breath will start smelling like acetone. So think of nail polish remover. Some people will be like, Some people will be like, actually, that's not bad.
Right.
The other thing is because our bodies are not used to burning this as a source of fuel, you will experience like brain fog. You will feel a little disoriented, and it will take some time to adjust. Let's say if your goal is to go on a ketogenic diet, right? But keep in mind, ketogenic diet is actually something that was initiated for individuals who have seizures. So it's not intended for everybody. Right. And as a dietitian, I always say, think about your lifestyle. I'm not saying that ketogenic diet or intermittent fasting isn't right for everyone. It may be right for somebody, but for the general public, I would say everything in moderation, balance out your portion. You should include a good source of carbohydrate. That is the general rule of thumb. So preferably, today's episode will be talking about bringing down the portion. So like you said, it doesn't have to be just pasta, but 1 cup cooked pasta is like eating 2 pieces of bread. Half a cup of brown rice or white rice is also like eating 1 piece of bread. But what we can do is cut the rice in half. So half a cup of rice and add it with a half a cup of beans. Right there, you're adding more protein and more fiber, and you're getting the job done where, your blood sugar will not necessarily spike, but also the excess carbohydrates. If let's say somebody's always eating white rice, the excess carbohydrate is less likely to turn into fat. And it's also less likely if you switch to something like quinoa or freekeh or brown rice, and you cut the portion in half, add the beans, you're less likely to feel hungry maybe half an hour later, right? Because you're adding the fiber and the protein, that will help with you feeling fuller longer.
Correct me if I'm wrong. So carbs have glucose in it, right?
Yeah.
And our body needs glucose to function properly.
Yes.
If we deprive the body from glucose,
yes,
then it starts to draw energy from a protein, from other parts of the body, and that can cause other issues with our health.
Right.
Am I right?
Exactly. So let's say you deprive your body of carbohydrates. The next choice would be fats. Then at last, they will rely on our protein for energy. And the reason why protein is the last choice is because protein is often used to repair muscles and cells. So they have other jobs, right? Ultimately, protein, we don't want protein to be used at all.
Of course.
But if protein is being used, then you're going to see potential losses in muscle mass. So again, that's why today's episode is all about, encouraging individuals to balance out your carbohydrate with a source of protein and fat. So for example, if you're at the office and you want a piece of fruit, so banana, you can have that banana, but remember that when you do go buy a banana, it should be about the length of one eye to the other eye, or think about the length of your sunglasses or reading glasses, and pair it with, some nuts and seeds, some Greek yogurt, or some peanut butter. It would be delicious, right? So again, the concept is always protein and a good fiber-rich carbohydrate source.
Right. Well, the thing is, eliminate the simple carbs, the ones that are absorbed really quickly by the body, and just replace that with all of this other goodness that's out there, and we should be okay. Or we should be better. Yeah.
Exactly. So because again, with the simple carbohydrates, they tend not to be rich in fiber. Right. So that's why, again, within even as fast as 15 minutes, somebody could be like, I'm hungry again. And they're not lying. So once you work on the change from a simple carbohydrate to a complex carbohydrate choice, you're already going to see a difference. And once you make that switch from a complex carbohydrate to adding a source of protein or fat, even adding avocado on a cracker, that's amazing, right? You're going to see a bigger difference.
Right. So when you talk about, we talked about simple carbs before. So complex carbs, give us some examples of that. So that,
yeah. So for example, the quinoa, the freekeh, the brown rice, the buckwheat, soba noodles, and sorghum. And also don't forget about your beans and legumes.
Potatoes?
Potatoes, yes.
Sweet potatoes?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So potatoes and sweet potatoes. Potatoes often get the bad reputation compared to sweet potatoes. But I want to encourage everybody that potatoes are okay. They are okay. But if you were to consume it in fry form, that's when it may not be a good idea to constantly consume it, whether in sweet potato form or regular potato form. And I just want to remind everybody that a standard size of a potato should be about the size of a computer mouse. And when you eat the size of a computer mouse worth of potato, that's like eating 2 pieces of bread. And I always try to encourage individuals to try to keep the skin on, because again, we have that fiber goal to reach, whether it's 21 to 38 grams, depending on your age group. But it's a lot of fiber per day, but we want every gram of fiber that we can get. So I encourage you to try to keep the skin on a sweet potato or a potato.
Right. One of my favorite snacks is a baked sweet potato.
Yeah.
I mean, it satisfies all my cravings. It's sweet. It has lots of fiber in it. It's satisfying. It's filling. I overdo it sometimes. I eat 2 of them. but sweet potatoes are, for me, they're just they're an amazing ingredient.
Yeah, they truly are.
Yeah.
So, and also don't forget that oatmeal or oats in general are a great source of whole grains as well. And oftentimes oatmeal or oats are generally put in that breakfast category.
Yes.
But I want to change people's minds and say there's no such thing as a breakfast food. Because again, a lot of people, due to the lifestyle today, they say they just don't have time to meal prep. Well, why can't you have oatmeal for lunch or dinner? Right. Yeah. And just turn it from a sweet combination to a savory combination. If oatmeal is what you have time to cook, by all means cook it, and then add some raw spinach or dark green leafy vegetables like kale, Swiss chard, right? And then you can add some canned beans on there. No salt added canned beans, but right, if you're looking for that quick 5-10 minute meal option, or you can open up a can of tuna and have a meal right there, because you've got your carbohydrate, your protein, and fat as well.
But do you have any, favorite recipes that you like to share with us there, Rowena?
I actually really like to make grain bowls. So, because they offer such variety. So again, pick your base. It could be quinoa, it could be buckwheat, it could be freekeh, it could be whole brown rice, it could be wild rice. That is your base. And then you pick your greens. So whether you want to keep them raw or cooked, your choice. So think about spinach, think about baby kale, think about Swiss chard. You can even, if you're growing herbs in your garden right now, think about basil and mint and parsley and dill, because they count as part of your green intake as well, if that makes life a little simpler, right? And then you want to layer it on top with some protein. So think about your chicken, your beef, your turkey. But a lot of individuals...
Lots of fish.
Exactly. I was just going to talk about fish because people don't think about fish as a protein because they're like, oh, meat only. But really, fish should be encouraged more. But also think about plant-based eating. Think about tofu. Think about your beans. Think about your legumes. So kidney beans, chickpeas, right? All different colors. Your lentils. There's so many different colored lentils, yellow, green, brown, red, right? So think about all the variety. And then on top of that, if you choose to cook some vegetables, you could have little pieces of shredded carrots, you can have cucumber, you can have little broccoli florets, right? If you want to roast some beets, that would be awesome.
Right.
And then on top of that, if you want to go a little extra because of the crunch or whatnot, you can have roasted chickpeas, you can have tahini, you can have hummus, tzatziki, right? The possibilities are really endless. And also with a mandolin, you can slice up some radishes and offer a little different taste profile. But I find given the choices, you won't get bored of your grain bowl because you have so many combinations you can make out of it, right? You can also make a miso glaze if you want something different other than the tzatziki, hummus, tahini. But even with tahini, I find it often gives people re-inspiration to eat something that they were getting bored of, because oftentimes we always talk about almond butter or peanut butter, but I don't find we talk about the other seed butters enough. Right. So tahini being one of them, but pumpkin seed butter.
Oh, it's delicious.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I think the grain bowl is a great idea for anybody who is getting bored of their usual grain choices, because there's just so many possibilities. It's really endless.
Oh, I agree with you, Rowena. Like you said, there are so many possibilities with the grain bowls. I have a few that I would like to share with you. These are recipes that I've tried over the years, and I enjoyed them. The first one is a quinoa and roasted chicken bowl with some yellow and red diced peppers, a bunch of spinach, and a simple vinaigrette made with Dijon mustard, lemon juice, avocado oil, salt, and pepper. You can sprinkle some walnuts or pumpkin seeds over it. Delicious, nutritious, and very easy to put together. My second recipe is roasted vegetables with couscous and eggs. This recipe calls for butternut squash, Brussels sprouts, and mushrooms. But of course, you can add any other type of vegetables that you like. Put everything on a bed of couscous and top it off with 1 or 2 fried eggs. Simple, easy, delicious. The third recipe is a chili lime shrimp bowl. For this recipe, you're going to need about a pound of shrimp that had been cleaned and deveined. Prepare a marinade with chili powder, minced garlic, paprika, cayenne pepper, cilantro, and lime juice. Allow the shrimps to marinate for about 10-15 minutes before you cook them. And you only need to cook them about 2-3 minutes per side. Next, prepare a salsa with mangoes, avocado, red onions, and a simple vinaigrette made with lime juice and olive oil. Serve with cauliflower rice or your favorite grain. Spicy, full of flavor, chili lime shrimps. My last recipe is a sweet potatoes and lentil soup, full of warm spices, healthy fibers, and delicious carbs. Start by rinsing 1 cup of lentils and let them soak in cold water for about 2 hours. For this recipe, I like to make my own vegetable stock. To a pot of cold water, add 1 roughly chopped onion, a carrot, celery stalks, a few tomatoes, parsley stems, and a couple of cloves. Bring to a gentle simmer, cover, and let go for about an hour. When ready, strain your stock into a bowl and set aside. In a large pot, add 2 tablespoons of olive oil and 1 finely chopped onion. Add 1 tablespoon of grated ginger and 2 tablespoons of grated garlic. Also add 1 teaspoon of salt, pepper, turmeric, cumin, cinnamon, coriander, and cayenne pepper. Add your diced sweet potatoes. Add your lentils. And cover with 5 or 6 cups of your homemade vegetable stock. Bring to a boil and let it simmer for about 20 minutes. At this point, add 1 or 2 cups of frozen peas and continue cooking for another 20 minutes. When ready, add 1 or 2 tablespoons of maple syrup. And there you have it. Warm, nutritious, healthy, sweet potatoes and lentil soup. Hope you try it. Rowena, thank you very much. We talked about my favorite subject, carbohydrates, only because it included pasta in there, but we know that, when we talk about carbs, it's not just about sugar and it's not just about pasta, but there's more to it. And I hope that, our viewers today that are watching, they've learned, I know I've learned a lot from you, and I hope they picked up some, some good suggestions and some good alternatives to our traditional carbs, as we call them. Rowena, thank you very much again. And it's been enjoyable. And we'll see you again.
See you again.
All right. You take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And thank you to all of you for dropping by my kitchen, Tony's Healthy Kitchen. Please join me again next week. We will talk about fats, the good fats and the bad fats, with our special guest, registered dietitian Michelle Fedele. Until then, be well and stay healthy.